Yo guys, what's up? It is Ripe again, back with more legal advice. I would just like to say a huge thank you to everyone who is already following me on Patreon. If you are interested yourself in exclusive Reddit videos from me, for example about Just No Mother-in-Law or Just No HOA, then please head over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube if you want to support me for as little as $1 per month. Thank you so much in advance. And the first one is titled, I moved from Kentucky to Tennessee this last weekend. Old landlord threw out all of my things and even kept/sold some. What recourse do I have? I lived in Kentucky with a 1-year lease that my landlord asked if I was willing to break 2 months early because he was fully booked and there was a promising tenant wanting a unit early. I agreed as long as he gave me 30 days to vacate. That was on January 17th, I was supposed to have 30 days, so I had until February 16th. Well, I decided to move to Tennessee, in which I signed a 6-month lease on February 9th and began moving my things. I had an antique dresser, appraised for $1,300 plus, a huge box of old comic books from the 70s, 80s and 90s, and a few even earlier. Estimate worth of over $4,000, and some miscellaneous personal items like photos and paperwork with my official SSN and medical records. On the 12th, I let the landlord know that I would be done by the 15th, tonight technically, and he would have a day to do some looking at the unit to see if I could have my deposit back. I took pictures of everything, he says it is good to go and I will be back for the last few items tonight. I just drove back from Tennessee to find my box of personal paperwork, SSN, medical and taxes etc. in the driveway with other residents riffling through it. I took it away and put it in my car, which spurred arguments of finders keepers. I call the LL, no answer. I then see my box of comic books on the stairs in front of the unit with most missing. The neighborhood kids came and took some. I politely explained what happened and asked for them back. They said no, so I walked away and tried calling my LL again. I now go to the main office and inside I see my $1,300 antique dresser with a for sale sign on it for $300 and I asked the front desk lady about it. She said that the LL was emptying out an old unit and the previous tenant abandoned it. I finally got a hold of my LL and he says that my time was up and that I no longer own anything in that apartment. I told him that we have it in writing that I have until the 16th, tomorrow, to which he says, I said that I would be done by tonight. It was not even past noon when this happened. I asked him where the other boxes of my personal paperwork are and he said that they are his property now. They are my medical records and such which highly personal info on them. One of the 2 boxes had my birth certificate in it and it is not in the box on the side of the street. So either a neighbor swiped it or my landlord has it. I know, I need a safe, I will get right on that. Aside from the fact that I technically still had a whole day left, if I truly did not have time left, can he keep my personal papers like that? Can he toss my papers on the street for others to grab? And I would suggest this guy to call the police because essentially he was robbed. File and small claims for the cost to replace your stolen items. Also, he should save his communications with his LL to give him possession of the unit until the 16th and his communications saying that he took his property on the 15th. In addition guys, and I'm not sure if you would agree, but I would say that it could be smart to freeze his credit with the reporting agencies and also to check back every so often to see if there have been any attempts. I'm not exactly sure how it works in the US, but in other countries you can request a new social insurance number, maybe something similar that is worth looking into. And now we will read an update to the story from before. The police made him return my antique dresser, but the box of papers he took he claims he shredded and already sent off to recycling. So I have to file for a new certificate now. He claims he was protecting me by getting rid of it, but I don't understand that logic when he left the other box of equally personal papers on the side of the road for everyone to loot. The other box of papers, the police went to every unit, 25 plus, and requested that anyone who took papers to return them and that they would be checking the security cameras. I don't know if anyone was arrested or anything, but several kids came up and gave back the majority of my comics. Sadly, many of them were opened and the mint packaging broken, ruining their value. Some comics are still missing and I suspect have been sold or otherwise. I plan to pursue this further because I have sustained damages that I feel the landlord is responsible for. But the landlord has been spoken to by the police and I'm not sure if he got arrested or not, as I am at my new apartment today and I have not contacted him again. I do have a lawyer now and he's working on the whole thing, which is messy because he says everyone who took papers from the box on the road is in legal trouble as well and they will all be involved in the case. There are still medical records and old paycheck stubs I have yet to recover. I might have missed a few things. Landlord's excuse was he thought I was done and I was leaving those things behind and not coming back, which he had a small reason to think that. I said I should be done by tomorrow night being the night of the 15th, but he came in on the morning of the 15th and began his cleaning out. If I were a landlord, I would have waited for the 16th or at least have called and confirmed first before assuming. Massive lesson learned for me here, thank you all for the support.
And guys, I'm curious, what would you have done if you were in OP's scrappy situation? I can just not imagine that my landlord would simply give away or even sell my personal belongings. And by the way, this story reminds me, have you ever collected something like comic books? Personally, I'm not a big collector of comic books, however, in the past I have collected a lot of Pokemon cards and I've spent insane amounts of money on that. I'm curious, have you ever spent money on things like that? Please let us know in the comments.
And the next one is titled, In Texas, I got the Milton treatment at my job. So sometime at the end of September I was laid off from work. No one told me, none of my bosses knew, none of my on-site HR knew, none of my coworkers knew. Some executives up the chain decided to terminate several employees and my name was on the list. Somehow when he sent off the paperwork, mine got lost in the system and I fell through the cracks. Thing is, I only knew about this after I suddenly noticed that my bank account was massively overdrawn and well over 900 worth of late fees on top of that. So I stopped getting paid at the end of September. I kept on working through October and then till the end of last week when I noticed that the money in my bank account ran out. The entire time I've been working, I have not been getting paid. I have to go in tomorrow to talk with HR about un-effing this situation. They simply want to pay me what they owe me, but I am thinking that I am owed a lot more. If I had known I was terminated from my job, I would have looked for New York and probably found it. I have a business degree in finance and I have never spent more than 2 weeks unemployed. So my questions are: do I need a lawyer when I go in? Is it too much to demand not only what I worked, but also whatever late fees and penalties I have incurred with my bank? Am I looking at a lawsuit here, or can this be settled out of court for what I need? And guys, if you ask me, they owe him for all the weeks, days and hours worked. If they are not willing to do that, then he can probably file a wage claim with, in this case, the Texas Workforce Commission. In addition, if you ask me, he should also file for unemployment based on when he stopped working. It is unlikely that he will have much luck with the rest, but if he wants to talk to an attorney first, his window is getting more and more narrow. So yeah guys, please let me know in the comments what you think about this. Would you agree that they absolutely have to pay him for the time worked? In my mind, that is definitely a no-brainer. And if they are not willing to do that, he should definitely go to an attorney as soon as possible. By the way, here another interesting comment, lawyer here but not in Texas. But I highly recommend you see a lawyer before this meeting. I don't know the law down there, but if you came to see me in my jurisdiction, Canada, I would not let you talk to them. I would talk to them on your behalf, demand not just your wages, but damages for your overdrawn bank account, late fees, interest and a bump for the shoddy manner of your dismissal, in aggravated punitive damages. And I would get it for you, if not from the company, from a judge. Again, different places, different laws, and I don't know the laws in Texas from a hole in the ground, but ask a lawyer, preferably one with a big cowboy hat. And guys, certainly, if you don't get a lawyer with a cowboy hat, I'm not sure if you are in the right Texas. The next one will be an update to the Milton treatment story from before. So I got significantly more than what I was owed by my work. But not for the overdrafts. When HR passed all of this up the line to my bosses, they realized that this could potentially be bad for the company. They offered me a severance package that included 2 months pay, plus money paid for my vacation time and 2 more months coverage on my health insurance. Basically to the end of the year. I had to inform them that I needed this in check form as my bank is being a bit more of a douche with the money. The bank account's overdraft fees are very convoluted and, from what my lawyer tells me, potentially actionable. I was with a credit union here in town. I will never make that mistake again. Basically, one overdraft put me into the red by $2. They charged me a $45 fee on top of this. I will regularly use my credit card for everyday shopping, as this is a great way to build your credit. I used this for a week before switching back to my debit card. By this time I had gone 1 week overdrawn, sitting at -47 and change. This was when they started charging administrative fees. $9.99 for each day the account remained overdrawn. Every single time they put one of those $9.99 fees on my account, they also put the overdraft fee of $45. So every day that I was overdrawn, they were effectively charging me $45.99. I made 2 purchases that week as well, with no notification from my bank, putting me at just under -420 by the end of the week. I did not know this. The day I found out about all of this was the day I got my letter. My letter stated that I was -150 overdrawn. They sent me the letter, and by the time I opened it, I learned that the letter was horribly incorrect as to the exact amount. I went up to the bank to learn that I was actually 900 overdrawn and freaked out immediately, asking where my money went. Without checking the fees themselves, I checked the debit on the account and saw that they stopped 2 months before I made my post. I later learned, like a day later, that 99% of the overdrawn amount was from administrative fees causing overdraft fees. On top of this, 150 of the overdrawn amount was because I had reached some threshold of negative balance on my account, causing more fees. I have managed to get those fees stopped by having the account terminated and the amount I owe them turned into a debt. But now I am going through the long process of getting that turned way down. My lawyer tells me that he can at least get it cut in half, maybe down to the almost 200 that was caused by my actual expenses, plus the overdraft fees directly caused by those charges. You know, the part that I actually owe. But it is a struggle.
And guys, I gotta say, that is one vicious circle of fees, and I'm curious, has something similar ever happened to you? If I gotta be honest with you guys, I'm not personally a big fan of credit cards because I really like to know where I spend my money and how much I have left. And it can be hard sometimes to keep track of that on a credit card. Though, in regards to that, way in the past I had a sort of special type of credit card which worked very similarly to a debit card. This card I only used when I was traveling abroad, and basically when I got money, for example, in an Asian country from an ATM, the money was instantly deducted from my bank account. So essentially it was a credit card, debit card, or whatever you would call that. Are you actively using credit cards, or have you ever had trouble with them? Please let us know in the comments.
And the next one is titled Date Scam / Dine and Dash Date. Any legal recourse? I will try to keep this short. I went on a date from OkCupid, talked to them for a few weeks, know his real name. He pressured me into going to one of the most expensive restaurants I've ever been to. Said he really wanted to impress me. When we were seated, I asked for separate checks, did not make a big deal about it. The server said they don't separate checks but will take 2 forms of payment. I had an expensive entree, but one of the cheapest, around $30. He had an appetizer, an entree that cost nearly $60, additional small plate type item, several glasses of a very expensive whiskey for over $100. His entire meal totaled to over $240 with drinks. Mine was just the entree and water. When time came to pay, he flipped out, said I had agreed we were splitting everything. I literally don't have this kind of money, so I kept insisting on not doing it. He got really mad and said he was going to the bathroom and we would settle when he got back. Of course, he went out to his car and texted me as he left that he felt like he had been taken advantage of and that by going on the date I had agreed to pay because technically I had talked to him first. I was so embarrassed, I asked the waiter what I should do. He said I had to pay for what we ordered and that they have called the police when people have dined and dashed before. Luckily, I had my credit card with me and paid the bill and left. Is this a legal matter? What recourse do I have, if any? Maybe small claims court? The entire principle of the thing has me so pissed off, I am willing to pursue whatever you recommend. I am in Colorado and I am not a minor. And guys, I would say the following. You can sue him in small claims court and present your evidence to the judge that he left without paying after ordering $300 worth of food. And you ordered less than 100. For small claims to work, you have to find out where he lives or works to serve him with the lawsuit. Worst case would be, I guess, that you are out $35 for the small claims filing fee, the cost of serving the lawsuit and a half day of work to go to court. You can probably serve the lawsuit with certified mail. Based on your story, you have a good chance of winning a judgment for at least half of the bill. It is not a sure thing and it depends on how well you present your case, the defendant and how the judge feels. If you win, you can include the court costs in your judgment. If he does not show up at all, but you did serve him, you still win. Next, you will also have to collect. Ideally, he just pays right then and there, but if not, there are a lot of different ways in order of the time to spend on it. First, do nothing. Small claims judgments are valid for up to 6 years and you may be able to renew them for longer. So if he's buying a home or a new car, he will likely have to pay off the judgment before getting a loan. Next, you can find out where he works and file a garnishment request or levy his bank account if you know where he banks. A debtor's exam will help with this info. The sheriffs add on fees to do this, so it will end up costing him more money if his wages are garnished. You can have the sheriff seize his personal property and sell it if the judgment is not paid. Basically, the sheriff serves him some paperwork and if he does not pay by X date, they will take his car and sell it. You can also report this debt as forgiven to the IRS and he will have to pay taxes on it. You won't get any money, but he will have to pay a little. If he owns any real property, there is a much more complicated process where you can place a lien on it and eventually foreclose, but it is not realistic to spend the time and money to collect on a small judgment. You would need a lawyer to proceed with that. And the next one is an update to the Dine and Dash story. I ended up posting about this on Facebook and it turns out that he has done it to several other women I know. He appears to be targeting women in low-income occupations, teaching and non-profit or unemployed and mostly in his neighborhood. A former roommate of mine was one of his victims. He pressures women to going to a really expensive restaurant, promises he will pay for his order and then disappears. He always orders a lot of the most expensive whiskey they have. Turns out he is a serial dine and dasher, not just on dates, and was turned away on the date with my former roommate. They ended up going to a much cheaper place and he was stopped by the owner as he tried to leave. Later, he even tried to insist that he should be able to take her leftovers home even though she had paid for them. Now that there are 4 of us, we are considering going to small claims court or alerting local PD/local media. Update number 2, he also lied about his job and education. Another girl has contacted me on Facebook. He was very pushy and they were at his apartment before their date. He knew that both of us have been unemployed for over 1 year and still pulled this. She was a former teacher who was moving back in with her parents. We are considering distributing his picture to restaurants. He has been kicked off OkCupid before and re-registers under new usernames in order to continue stealing from vulnerable women. All of these girls live in my same neighborhood.
And guys, I'm curious, have you ever experienced a so-called dine and dash in real life? And in addition, what was your experience so far with online dating? I gotta be honest with you guys, I don't have that much experience with it, but the little experience that I have was overwhelmingly positive. However, I hear that many people have a lot of bad experiences with it, so I'm curious, what was your experience so far? Please let us know in the comments. And guys, unfortunately we have reached the end of the video. I'm kind of going crazy because every time I turn on the camera, someone outside is starting to build something or whatever, and it's super loud. So unfortunately we have to end it here, but I hope you enjoyed the content. And they are starting again, but anyway, now I'm sticking with the recording. Please check out my Patreon under patreon.com/ripeyoutube if you want exclusive Reddit videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I see you again tomorrow.